Hello and welcome to A World as We See It. Welcome, of course, if this is your first visit. If you're a return visitor, then you're especially welcome. And today we've got an agenda because I've said, I think one of the things we're talking about is Brett Neal. I'm going to be giving you a Sarum update, which I'll do probably once a week or so, whenever there's news. And I suppose what I need to do is apologise for the late start today. It couldn't be helped. One of the students hadn't finished, and I just had to keep going, so that extended that class by another 8 minutes. And also 6.5, 7 minutes. By the time you said goodbye, it's almost 10 minutes. So yes, apologies for tardiness. It's not ideal, but here we are, and so welcome. Now, what I'm going to do is talk to you, give you a little bit of an introduction to my old friend Brett. And really we ended up living in this house here in Thailand because Brett lived just up the road. And Brett Neal was a fine artist, a British fine artist, and meeting somebody who was British, who was intelligent and a bit of a raconteur. He had lots of stories which were great. And he was I don't know a way of saying it really, because it's disingenuous to say he was the teller of tall tales. He wasn't. He had lots and lots of very tall tales, but actually as soon as you investigated any of them, the tallest of the tales were true. So that made them even more intriguing. And made him even more interesting. Now, Brett and I worked together in the end for about 3 years, and he absolutely supported my endeavours to be a fine artist, something which I, at varying levels of success, did for 3 years. And the only reason I stopped doing it was because we had our baby boy, and when you're making artwork, you can't guarantee income, even though actually doing the art feeds the soul, I believe. I think art is one of the greatest things that anyone can do. It doesn't bring in a guaranteed return, and so I started teaching about 4 years ago. Now that coincided about 4 years ago with Brett becoming very seriously ill. We didn't know what was wrong with him. I think he didn't know he was ill, and very quickly he deteriorated, and he died. And he died here in Thailand. At the ridiculously young age of 55. So very, very sad. Now, instead of focusing on the anniversary, which is actually today, which is why we're speaking about him, what I wanted to do was just to share with you some of his work, because it was wonderful. It was really good. And so that's what I thought we could do. We could take a little break from me just, reading various books or whatever. We can have a look, I thought, at Brett's website, a website his brother made for him. And this has all of Brett's work on it. And it gives you a chance to then, I suppose, see some of the stuff which somebody who lived in Thailand did while they were living here. and I think that's all good. So let's go over to Brett's web page. Where are you? There you are. Okay, and we'll make that come in just a little bit, like we always do. I think that's much better there. And you can see that the website's very straightforward. I'll share the website URL with anyone who's interested, anyone who wants it, and then you can visit it yourself. And I just sent that in the chat box of the Twitch. And there are limited editions, a number of limited editions, and these are his KitchenAid mixers, some of them which were fantastic. In fact, the paintings of some of these. This is the Brit mix, which was brilliant. And these were painted. They were a square meter, painted by hand by Brett, and they took months for him to complete. Months and months. There's one here which is a Liechtenstein and Picasso. Very, very beautiful. And we've got some pots as well. So Caravaggio, Matisse. This one's the condensed. So Andy Warhol, all reflected in a cooking pan. And there are some other things here. This is Brett's version of the Garden of Earthly Delights. So just done in pen, and it's almost like an etching when you look at it up close. And this was a huge painting, so it was a metre tall by I think 2 metres wide. So very, very beautiful. And then Pulp Fiction, which I love this one. I think it's great. Very good. So there were some cards and some other information. So I encourage everyone, if you haven't heard of Brett Neal, if you haven't seen his work, then do go and have a look at the website, because I think actually Brett would agree that I mean, this is beautiful. This is a lovely painting. This is called The Singer, and it's a really lovely piece of work. Look at that. But Brett would agree really that if we were going to mention him, and I wanted to, because he was my best friend here in Thailand for the time where we overlapped. So yes, of course I'd mention him, but I think actually the memorial of Brett is in his work, isn't it? That's how he would like to be remembered, I'm sure. That's his legacy. So there you are. Anyway, that's a tiptoe through the website of a friend of mine called Brett Neal, who passed away 4 years ago today. Now, let's move on to a Sarum update, shall we? So what we've got, one of the things which is very good and about to happen is a course on safeguarding. Everyone in England, everyone within the church, I mean everyone not in England and aware of the church, of course is aware of how vulnerable people, whether children or adults, can be at risk. And there are procedures in place to ensure that they are not unduly at risk. And this is a course which is available to anyone who works in the church, I believe. Certainly it's worth visiting the website, and I'll share that link as well. This is a course I'm about to start. I haven't finished it, haven't done it, but I'll give you an update as soon as I do and I pass. And I will. So that's very exciting. So that was sent to me today. And the other thing that I was doing was going over the course aims and objectives. We've had to introduce ourselves in a forum, And in the forum, really, we need to explain, who we are, where we are, what we do, and what we hope to achieve in with the course, with the 3-year course, which we're starting imminently. So there we are. So that's the Sarum update, really. So I'm getting to grips with Sarum Learn. I'm getting to grips with what I need to do and when I need to do it. And yes, it's all good, really. I can't tell you how excited I am to be involved in that. Now, the other thing we are going to do today is Tillich, and so I know we've swept through those 2 other things because what I'm wanting to do is to crack on with Tillich. We didn't do Tillich yesterday, and so I think it's only right and proper that we do at least 3 pages of Tillich today. So Tillich is, we're going to start here. We always start in the same place, and we are still on the reality of revelation, okay, and we're going on to the reason in final revelation. Okay, number 9, final revelation, overcoming the conflict of autonomy and heteronomy. Revelation is the answer to the question implied in the existential conflicts of reason. After describing the meaning and actuality of revelation generally, and of final revelation especially, we must show how final revelation answers the questions and overcomes the conflicts of reason in existence. Revelation overcomes the conflict between autonomy and heteronomy by re-establishing their essential unity. We have discussed the meaning of the 3 concepts: autonomy, heteronomy, and theonomy. The question now is how theonomy is created by final revelation. Final revelation includes 2 elements which are decisive for the reunion of autonomy. Aha! So thank you, Father David Price, for liking the stream on Facebook. It's very, very generous of you. We have moved on to Tillich. So we touched on Neal, the fine artist who passed away 4 years ago, and who will be included in this week's intercessions because of Year's Mind. And then we also gave a bit of an update on Sarum. So that's where we are, and now we've dived straight into Tillich for the fun of it. So final revelation includes 2 elements which are decisive for the reunion of autonomy and heteronomy: the complete transparency of the ground of being in Him who is the bearer of the final revelation, and the complete self-sacrifice of the medium to the content of revelation. The first element keeps autonomous reason from losing its depth and from becoming empty and open for demonic intrusions. The presence of the divine ground, as it is manifest in Jesus as the Christ, gives a spiritual substance to all forms of rational creativity. It gives them the dimension of depth, and it unites them under symbols expressing this depth in rites and myths. The other element of final revelation, the self-sacrifice of the finite medium, keeps heteronomous reason from establishing itself against rational autonomy. Heteronomy is the authority claimed or exercised by a finite being in the name of the infinite. Final revelation does not make such a claim and cannot exercise such a power. If it did, it would become demonic and cease to be final revelation. Far from being heteronymous and authoritarian, final revelation liberates. He who believes in me does not believe in me, says Jesus in the fourth gospel, destroying any heteronymous interpretation of his divine authority. The church, as the community of the new being, is the place where the new theonomy is actual. But from there it pours into the whole of man's cultural life and gives a spiritual centre to man's spiritual life. In the church, as it should be, nothing is heteronymous, in contrast to autonomous. And in man's spiritual life, nothing is autonomous, in contrast to heteronymous. Whenever spiritual life has an ultimate integration, yet this is not the human situation. The church is not only the community of the new being, it is also a sociological group immersed in the conflicts of existence. Therefore, it is subject to the most irresistible temptation of becoming heteronymous and of suppressing autonomous criticism, eliciting just by this method autonomous reactions which often are strong enough to secularize not only culture but also the church itself. A heteronymous tide may then start the vicious cycle again. But the church is never completely bereft of theonomous forces. There have been periods in the history of the church in which wide theonomy, though limited and destructible, was realized more than in other periods. This does not mean that these periods were morally better or intellectually more profound or in a more radical way ultimately concerned. It does mean that they were more aware of the depth of reason, of the ground of autonomy, and of the uniting centre, without which spiritual life becomes shallow, disintegrates, and produces a vacuum into which demonic forces may enter. Now this is really interesting because this relates, I think, to the homily which we had yesterday. We read Father David's homily from Sunday, and we were talking about the spiritual bread given by Christ, given by God, and trying to fulfill that in a way which, or at least one of the things which I was discussing was how folk are or perceived to be, as far as I'm concerned, how folk seem to be getting their spiritual kicks elsewhere in a way which is vacuous, which is temporary, which does not fill them up. And how interesting, Tillich is echoing some of that stuff here. So certainly Father David wrote about it, I spoke about it, and Tillich is here chatting about it too. Interesting. Good. I like it when that happens. Theonomous periods are periods in which rational autonomy is preserved in law and knowledge, in community and art. Where there is theonomy, nothing which is considered true and just is sacrificed. The onomous periods do not feel split, but whole and centred. Their centre is neither their autonomous freedom nor their heteronymous authority, but the depth of reason, ecstatically experienced and symbolically expressed. Myth and cult give them a unity in which all spiritual functions are centred. Culture is not controlled from outside by the church, nor is it left alone so that the community of the new being stands beside it. Culture receives its substance and integrates power from the community of the new being, from its symbols and its life. Where theonomy determines a religious and cultural situation, however, fragmentarily and ambiguously, as for instance in the early and high Middle Ages, reason is neither subject to revelation or independent of it. Aesthetic reason does not obey ecclesiastical or political prescripts, nor does it produce secular art cut off from the depth of aesthetic reason. Through its autonomous artistic forms, it points to the new being which has appeared in final revelation. In theonomy, cognitive reason does not develop authoritatively enforced doctrines, nor does it pursue knowledge for the sake of knowledge. It seeks in everything true, an expression of the truth which is of ultimate concern, the truth of being as being, the truth which is present in the final revelation. Legal reasons does not establish a system of sacred and untouchable laws, nor does it interpret the meaning of the law in technical utilitarian terms. It relates the special as well as the basic laws of a society to the justice of the kingdom of God, and to the logos of being as manifest in the final revelation. Communal reason does not accept communal forms dictated by sacred ecclesiastical or political authorities, nor does it surrender human relations to their growth and decay through will to power and libido. It relates them to the ultimate and universal community, the community of love, transforming the will to power by creativity and the libido by agape. In very general terms, this is the meaning of theonomy. It is the task of a constructive theology of culture to apply these principles to the concrete problems of our cultural existence. Systematic theology must restrict itself to a statement of principles. There are numerous descriptions of theonomy in Romanticism, numerous attempts to re-establish a theonomy according to the pattern of an idealized Middle Ages. Catholicism too demands a new theonomy, but what it really wants is the re-establishment of ecclesiastical heteronomy. Protestantism cannot accept the medieval pattern either in Romantic or Roman terms. It must look forward to a new theonomy. Yet in order to do so, it must know that what theonomy means, and that this it can find in the Middle Ages. In contrast to Romanticism, however, Protestantism is aware that a new theonomy cannot be created intentionally by autonomous reason. Autonomous reason is one side in the conflict between autonomy and heteronomy, and cannot overcome this conflict. Therefore, the Romantic quest for theonomy cannot be fulfilled except through final revelation and in unity with the Church. The breakdown of Romantic art and philosophy, of Romantic ethics and politics, in an especially conspicuous way in the middle of the 19th century, shows that a new theonomy is not a matter of intention and goodwill, but that it is a matter of historical destiny and grace. It is an effect of the final revelation which no autonomy can produce and which no heteronomy can prevent. Ooh. So, I mean, he starts to pick up a pace at the end of that section 9, and by the end of it, he seemed to be sounding rather passionate in his reasons for, I suppose, promoting a moving on from what happened in the Middle Ages, or at least harking back to what was going on in the Middle Ages, but moving on from whatever happened in the Victorian days. So very interesting stuff. Need to mull that lot over, as I hope you do as well. We're going on next time to section 10. We've read the whole of section 9 there, which was quite good. So we've done 3.5 pages of Tillich, which is very good. We're on page 151 of 427. So we've still got a way to go, but we are moving on. We're chunking away at it. And in the end, we will all have read, in my case, or heard, in your case, Paul Tillich's systematic theology. So very good. Thank you for your time there, your patience. And I think what we will do is now would be a very good time, I think, to go to the night prayer on the Common Worship webpage, and we'll go to the night prayer, and we will go to the collect at the bottom of that page, and we will say, "Keep watch, dear Lord, with those who wake or watch or weep this night, and give your angels charge over those who sleep. Tend the sick, give rest to the weary, sustain the dying, calm the suffering, and pity the distressed. All for your love's sake, O Christ, our Redeemer. Amen." So thank you very much for your time. I know that we had a swift tiptoe through our agenda this evening. Tomorrow we're going to be looking at the Church Times again and going through some of the headlines. And that's it for this evening. So thanks again, and I will say, with prayers and best wishes, bye-bye for now.